Well, hi, this is John Kinzer, and we are watching Faith, Culture, and Society. This is Series 3 and Session 3 about James Madison. James Madison is the 4th President of the United States. And last session, we saw how God had used individuals for his purposes, particularly with President Thomas Jefferson. And it seems that God used Jefferson to expand the nation to the west, expand opportunities for liberty, for growth, and for security in the new nation. The nation was only 20 years old, so it's a very young nation. So also, James Madison is going to be a very far-sighted individual for the stability of our new nation. And we see that he led a life of public service. He's best known as the chief architect of the U.S. Constitution and extremely well-planned government for the new nation. And he developed the strategy to get it implemented. He was a planner and he had a strategy for the republic. We say the finger of God, the influence of God on the life of this young boy growing up on a farm in Virginia. He was taught by a Presbyterian minister, Reverend Donald Robertson. And Madison later said this. He said, "All that I have been in life, I owe largely to that man." We see the Christian character of Madison molded by this teacher and Madison's grateful attitude in how God had shaped his life through this man. He remembered as a boy standing in Orange, Virginia, his local town, with his father one day, and hearing the Baptist preachers who were locked in jail preaching from their cell windows. The church was supported by the state of Virginia. It was the Episcopal Church, and Baptists were persecuted. Madison never forgot this experience, and he becomes a voice for religious freedom. Madison began his public career serving in a number of local positions, but he was elected to the General Assembly in Virginia. And he represented Virginia at the Constitutional Convention in 1787. He was the major architect of the Virginia Plan, which became the agenda for this new government. In preparation, he studied for about a year previous to the convention all the ancient and modern governments. He wrote a paper called The Vices of the Political System of the United States. And he found that the nations are more likely to fall from within than they are from invasion from the outside or from a violent overthrow. Government must be well constructed and supported by truths. He spoke 161 times in the convention. Only one other delegate spoke more. A fellow delegate, William Pierce from Georgia, said this: "Madison always comes forward the best informed man on any point in the debate." Douglas Adair, a history scholar, said of James Madison that his studies were, quote, "probably the most fruitful piece of scholarly research ever carried out by an American," unquote. Again, wisdom and diligence clearly displayed in the life of this man. Well, what did he accomplish at the Constitutional Convention of 1787? Well, he wrote in the Federalist Papers, of which he authored many of those papers, he said, quote, "But what is government itself but the greatest reflection of human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary." So first of all, he knew that men were sinners, not angels, and they needed some control. So the new government would have to have power to control the people, but also government would have to have a means to control itself, that it would not become oppressive. Number two, he believed that to control government, power should be divided into three branches: the legislative, the executive and the judicial. Branches of government were necessary to keep all the power separated from congealing or being accumulated with one person. And there must be checks and balances from, between the branches so none would be growing too strong or taking control. Madison stated this, quote, "All men having power ought to be distrusted." End of quote. This is the father of the Constitution. Number 3, Madison realized the importance of religious liberty. He opposed ideas to support churches with tax money. He believed Christianity would flourish when free to be heard and to influence men's reason and their consciences. So after the convention, Madison served in Congress and introduced the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution that guaranteed freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to petition, freedom to assemble, freedom to also assemble and worship God. In 1809, he was elected the 4th president. He served for 8 years. His time as president was really dominated by the War of 1812. And the British, France in Europe, and they had the most powerful navy in the world. The war started as they boarded American ships, took American crews, and pressed them into the English Navy. In the war, the Americans had a very poor, very weak military, and they were not prepared for the conflict. The British won most of the naval battles, and with 50 ships and 4,000 troops, they landed in the Chesapeake area and marched to burn Washington, D.C. They burned the White House. They burned the Capitol building. Madison had guided the country through its first big trial. Well, what were his contributions to liberty? 3 branches of government, checks and balances on each branch, protecting religious liberty, freedom of speech, other liberties that are essential. His work as president established stability and foreign recognition for the United States. Serving in public office 37 years, and here is this example of Christian character, giving his time in service, his time, his energy, and his understanding, his knowledge. So thank you for being with us today for Faith, Culture, and Society.